they have their own service issues, with the government. So there is a deadlock as far as that is concerned.
So can we start the program now? It's 8 p.m.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Namaskar. Welcome to Bharat Forum Reflections. Today we convene here to discuss the important topic of Indian state's surrender to continuing jihad against Hindus in Jammu and Kashmir. We know that Jammu and Kashmir is in a state of continuing jihad against Hindus since the advent of Islam in the 14th century. So, Islamic rule in J&K, that is. The genocide of Hindus continues unabated even after the historic neutering of Article 370. So, the recent brazen killing of Kashmiri Pandit Rahul Bhatt was a grim reminder that in the Tehsil office, for people who don't know what is Tehsil office, people who joined us here from abroad, let me tell you that it is the revenue office. He was killed right in the revenue office, the seat where he sits and does his work. So he was killed in Badgaon. The terrorists came and shot him dead. There was not a single policeman guarding the place. So that's the state of affairs. So we are now here to ask whether to say whether the states, it shows the state's impotency in tackling murderous jihad in J&K. Till now, from 2019, we have 14 civilians killed by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. That is still from 2019. And this problem actually occurs because the Indian state has lacked the will to dismantle the terror support system well entrenched in academics, politics, police, and even the general Muslim populace. Because even in Rahul Bhatt's case, it is said, his wife said that there were people, she believes that some of the people who worked along with him, the Muslim workers, they were the ones who tipped the terrorists off. So the problem still exists, and the Indian state lacks the will to dismantle this terror support system, which has been, it even fails to recognize the genocide of Hindus since 1990. It calls the Hindu Kashmiri Pandits who were forced to flee Kashmir in 1990, they called them terrorists. They called them migrants. Migrants is a word, one could migrate for floods, one could migrate for any other earthquake, any other reason. But this migration happened due to jihad, a complete jihad, a genocide of Hindus. So Indian state is in a perpetual denial of Hindu genocide in Jammu and Kashmir. The situation is quite the same even in Jammu. In Jammu too, few days back, a bus was in fire. It carried pilgrims from Katra, to Vaishno Devi. That was again a terrorist act. Then we have in Sidra, IED was discovered. Then we have temples being repeatedly sort of desecrated in Jammu. Then we have land jihad there. Land jihad is a very systematic instrument that is being carried out with state support. I would like to say that. So we have today to discuss all these problems with Advocate Ankur Sharma ji. I would like to say he's a stellar young man who has sort of come into the scene. He's taken this problem at the forefront. He's been a very great advocate who has fought against this land jihad, or that is through the Roshni Act. In fact, he got it nullified. It was a big thing, and then of course we have the BJP claiming that they got it nullified, and all sorts of things. So they have a tendency to do that. And he fought against land jihad. he got the land, the act nullified, and he also got the Mehbooba Mufti's February 14 very dangerous sort of direction, which said that people who have occupied forest lands cannot be evicted by the help of the police. The police should not take any action on them, even under court directions. That was completely an illegal direction. So we had Ankur Sharma even objecting to it and taking legal recourse to it to stop that such a dangerous move. So we have with us Ankur Sharma ji, who is a relentless, a dedicated Hindu activist who has fought jihad in Jammu. So, and he is formed recently Ikjut Jammu political party, is the president of it, and we hope to have a new beginning in Jammu and Kashmir, Hindu politics in Jammu and Kashmir through him. We have today him discussing the problem with us. Ankur ji, please, you're welcome, and please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful introduction, and probably the tone has also been set. Yes, you rightly said that this is, and I should say in clear words, as far as the state of J&K or the UT of J&K is concerned, it's purely a jihadi Islamist domain, deploying Muslim Brotherhood's model of destroying constitutional democracies by abusing constitutional freedoms is something which manifested in J&K immediately after the partition or the independence in 1947. J&K was handed over to Muslim Conference, later turned National Conference, and the Muslim polity. There were constitutional provisions which were introduced, ensuring that the state of J&K continues to remain a non-secular, theocratic Islamist domain within the secular polity of the country. By introducing 370 and 35A, the state of India ensured that here is a Muslim majority state where the Indian constitution will not apply. Here is the Muslim majority state which will have its own flag, its own constitution. So state within the state, with the sanction of the Constitution of India, granted by the Indian state, by the state of India. So what we had, a constitutionally created Islamist domain where the non-Muslims would have a second order status. The non-Muslims, despite being minority, will be denied minority rights, where Islamic expansion and takeover of non-Muslim lands will be a state-sponsored phenomena, which is also called as land jihad, or what is also known as demographic assault on Jammu province or Hindu majority areas. So it is in this context that we decided to fight against this Islamist domain. We started our fight by seeking abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. And if you go through my Facebook timeline or the newspaper reportings which have been done after the BJP government came into power, both in the center and in the state, you would find Ekjut Jammu party activists fighting on the ground, seeking abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. For 35A, we also went right up to the Supreme Court along with other petitioners, other people who had earlier gone to the Supreme Court and sought its abrogation. Ultimately, it happened. But we don't have to confuse this thing, that with the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, the Islamic state, the non-secular theocratic state within the secular polity of the country of India has also gone. No, it's only the legal entity, the de jure Islamic state, which has been dismantled with the abrogation of 370-35A. The de facto Islamic state still continues to call shots. It is still in existence. And we are fighting against this de facto Islamic state, which is unfortunately once again being protected and nourished by the state of India, obviously through constitutional provisions and through many legislative interventions as well. You, in your introduction, talked about land jihad, demographic assault. You also talked about Roshni Act, 14th February 2018 Act. I just want to very briefly explain as to how this land jihad or demographic assault in J&K was a state-sponsored, state-led process, and which is something which has a security implication on the entire country. In fact, the Sanatan Indic civilization. You had through the ages of 370, 35A, and after its abrogation through other means, which I'll discuss in detail in the latter half of this program, a non-secular state apparatus whose objective was to somehow Islamize entire J&K for a bigger geopolitical need by playing into the hands of the enemy country, especially Pakistan and its spy agency, the intelligence agency, the ISI. So they would use our legislative spaces to come out with certain laws and orders through which they would be executing their genocidal process of unleashing land jihad against Hindus or non-Muslims in J&K. So in the first instance, they legislated a law called as J&K State Lands Vesting of Ownership to the Occupants Act in 2001, which is also popularly known as Roshni Act, using which the state lands, the government lands, the public lands were given away in favor of, largely, especially the final orders, in favor of Muslims in Hindu-dominated areas. That's number one. So you had a tool using which, a legislative tool, you would be giving ownership rights of state lands in Hindu majority areas to Muslims. Of course, Hindus can also apply, but their applications will not be processed. Suppose they have to settle 10 Muslim families in a Hindu dominated area, like Kathua or Samba, which has overwhelmingly Hindu population. So using this Roshni Act, they would be handing over several canals or hectares of land in favor of these Muslims. So they were doing it legally and using the state apparatus, using the state machinery, the state officials, and the legislations produced by the so-called secular institutions, legislative assembly. Now, the second tool that was deployed by this state apparatus, and I'm discussing only about the state tools because I just wanted to prove that this entire project was a state-led project against the country, against the Hindus of Jammu. So you had what is also known as the 14th February executive directions issued by the chief minister of the state. It was a BJP PDP led coalition. The chief minister was Mehbooba Mufti, and she passed an order which was classified. It was not made public. It was directly sent to the concerned officials. The order was a 5-page order. This order granted legal immunity in favor of Muslims to occupy lands in Hindu-dominated Jammu province. The directions were threefold. There were so many other things also, but primarily in this context, the directions were threefold. Number one, if a Muslim occupies a state land or a forest land or a riverbed or any other land, then no authority, number one, can evict him. The second direction which was issued, that suppose there exists a situation under which the authorities are constrained by the force of law or say by a court order to evict Muslim encroachers, the SSPs and the deputy commissioner would be the head of the revenue administration or the head of the district administration, including the police administration. They will not, the SSPs will not provide police assistance for carrying out eviction of Muslims, suppose it is required to be done in any case. The third direction was granting legal immunity in favor of Muslims to commit cow slaughter and offenses of bovine smuggling. It was categorically said that if Muslims are caught slaughtering cows or smuggling cows or bovine animals, then the provisions of Section 188 RPC and the provisions of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, the law, will not be applied against them. They'll not be booked. So you had, through this executive direction, Chief Minister granting legal immunity in favor of Muslims to occupy lands and to commit cow slaughter and bovine smuggling. And then you had this systematic setup of settling Rohingyas and Bangladeshi Muslims exclusively and only in Hindu-dominated areas of Jammu province around security establishments. The third arm of this demographic assault or land jihad. and it were the state agencies which ultimately facilitated water and electricity connections to these illegal settlers. The ministers would come out openly in support of them, saying that yes, these are the people who should be settled in Jammu. The angle projected was the humanitarian angle, and they also ensured that their Aadhaar cards are made. You have these West Pakistani Hindu refugees from Pakistan of 1947 and refugees from Pak occupied Jammu Kashmir, who were the state subject, the residents of this state, especially the West Pakistani refugees, the Indian citizens. They would not get a state subject certificate in J&K. They were living in J&K since 1947. They are Indian citizens, but they would not get the permanent resident certificate of the state of J&K because during partition they had come from the Punjab part of Pakistan. But you had these Rohingyas and Bangladeshis who were illegal immigrants, but were given, some of them, state subject and permanent resident certificates. And then you have processes being facilitated by the state apparatus in J&K, what is called as funded colonization. I mean, you will fund the colonization of Hindu areas. There are NGOs who through Hawala channels are pumping in money in Jammu province, giving it in some form of a subsidy to those Muslim buyers who are interested in buying lands in Hindu dominated areas. There are so many documented cases, and therefore this has probably led to the price rise of lands in Jammu. And you would find invariably everybody, and this is a fact which is a public fact, that a Muslim buyer will pay you above what is the market price of the land or the property that he's intending to buy in a Hindu dominated area. Then we had also disclosed, come out in open saying that there are certain colonies which are being developed with state support in Jammu province into dominated areas which are exclusively Muslim colonies. I mean the sellers and buyers and are only Muslims, and there were advertisements being published in leading newspapers of Jammu province saying that this is a colony which we are developing exclusively for Muslims. So all sort of these processes. Then you have these forest land encroachments, apart from that, which was allowed by the state in favor of one community, the Muslim community. The riverbeds were encroached. The encroachment of riverbeds and forest lands exclusively by Muslims through state support can be established from the fact that in a public interest litigation, which is still pending in J&K High Court, a report was filed by the district judge of Jammu, a committee formed under his chairmanship, including other revenue official, including the deputy commissioner also. So he submits a list of 668 encroachers within a very municipal limit of Jammu as to who are the people who have encroached Suryaputri Tavi, which is a very revered river, and a river which is located at a place which is exclusively a Hindu area. So 668 names were placed before the court on affidavit by this government committee. And out of 668, 667 encroachers were Muslims. They are Muslims, and there's nothing which has been done, even as on date, to evict them from these riverbeds. Capturing riverbeds in Jammu, in Kathua, in Samba, in Udhampur, in Riyasi, in Rajouri, all Hindu-dominated areas, is a modus operandi which is quite manifest and evident whenever you drive through these areas or riverbeds or nalas. You would find these encroachments, and you can easily identify as to who these people are. Their religious identity is easily discernible from the dress that they wear, and anybody having a local knowledge would immediately come to know as to who are these people. So this is happening all around. Now we again, through court intervention, the data of forest land encroachments was released in public. It was made public. In Jammu district, the population of Muslims is 7%, and the data of forest land encroachment as far as Jammu district is concerned would reveal that 75% of the total encroachers encroaching several thousand canals and hectares of forest land are Muslims. So 7% population has a share of 75% in the list of encroachers. So you can easily understand as to what is happening in J&K. And All this is happening with state support, through various subversive activities. So that's one part. As far as the other angle is concerned, the denial of Hindu genocide is again a continuous process in the state of J&K. Hindus, what happened to Hindus in the 1990s in Kashmir Valley is known to everybody. Probably what happened to them in Muslim majority districts of Jammu province is not known to everybody, but similar and more pronounced form of atrocities were unleashed against Hindus of Doda, Kishtwar, Rajouri, Punch, parts of Ramban and Udhampur, these Muslim majority areas. They were killed, raped, looted, mass murders happened at a scale unprecedented in the history of J&K. So these Hindus are demanding since 1990 that whatever has happened to us should be officially declared as genocide, because under UN's Genocide Convention, to which India is a signatory, it is incumbent on the state government or the central government, in fact, to declare these crimes as genocide so that tribunals can be set up and justice can be handed over to the victims of genocide. Now, it is ironical to find out that the state of India is continuously refusing to even acknowledge that whatever happened to the Hindus, and more than 5 lakh people lost their homes, they are still refugees in their own country. The state of India, as on date, refuses to recognize and grant official recognition to these acts as Hindu genocide. So the biggest instrument of denial of Hindu genocide is the state of India itself. And why I am emphasizing on the word denial of Hindu genocide is because of the nature of genocide. Denial of genocide is the climax of genocide. Genocide is one thing, but if you deny the victims their right to have this notification issued in their favor that we are the victims of genocide, that is akin to double genocide. That is committing another genocide against them. And denial of genocide duplicates and replicates genocide. So all these instances of Hindu targeted killings that you are witnessing in J&K as on date is because of state of India's position of continuously denying Hindu genocide since 1990s. Therefore, Hindu genocide is unabated and continuing. As far as other areas are concerned, if you talk about employment, then religion forms the basic parameter for giving public employment. I mean, there are so many subversive activities which are happening in, say, Public Service Commission or the SSRB. They subvert the system and they ensure that members of a particular community are only represented in government services. These things are happening because the de facto Islamic State has not been demolished, and de facto Islamic State is controlling the state apparatus in J&K. The state of India, given its denial of Hindu genocide, given its age-old, 70 years old policy, the Nehruvian policy of handling J&K by handing over power to Islamists or half separatists, is continuing to rule the roost now as well. They abrogated 370-35A, but probably we now realize that probably that was an accident. They're doing everything today to reverse this abrogation of 370 and 35A and trying to bring in the Islamic State or 370, 35A from backdoor. So that is the situation. The dispensation which came to power in 2014 and 2015 in J&K, 2014 in center, has everything bad for Nehru, but are more Nehruvian in their approach towards J&K. So such is the situation. Hindus or the non-Muslims are a second order status citizens in J&K. There are processes which have been deployed which ensure that power would always remain in the hands of half separatists or the Islamist regime in J&K. For that, even the state of India or the state apparatus ensures that the census are fudged. For that, even it is also ensured that even if this fact is brought to public attention, like for instance, we brought this fact, it is Ekjut Jammu Party which brought the fudging of census fact in public domain, proved it by analyzing things and bringing data into public domain and establishing, after which the ruling party, the BJP, also went on record to say that yes, 2011 census is fudged. Despite this, they decided to conduct the new delimitation process in J&K on the basis of this fraud, fudged, anti-Hindu, anti-Jammu census. It's a genocide of Hindus on paper. Their numbers have been decreased. Not only Hindus, but Sikhs also, Buddhists also. The numbers have been decreased. So the basic parameter, the basic foundation on the basis of which it was to be determined after abrogation of 370 and 35A, that who would actually get more number of seats in J&K and consequently the control of power in J&K, it was decided that those census which would ensure handing over power to Islamists and separatists and anti-nationals in J&K, half separatists, we will conduct delimitation on that basis. So I think things are in a very bad shape. But yes, we are fighting. We are fighting. I challenged the constitutional validity of this Roshni Act way back in 2014 in J&K High Court. And this legislative jihad, the Roshni Act is also called as legislative jihad. So in October 2020, I was able through J&K High Court to demolish this instrument of legislative jihad and get it declared unconstitutional. Not only that, the beneficiaries under the Roshni Act, the court also ordered that you have to take back the lakhs of canals of land which has been handed over to unauthorized occupants, illegal encroachers, back from them. So but the most unfortunate thing that the state as on date is not interested in implementing this judgment. We are fighting in court. It has filed a review petition. The state of India has filed a review petition saying, literally taking a ground in the court, that we want to regularize Muslim encroachments which have happened in Hindu dominated areas, and therefore we want to come out with a scheme. Please grant us permission so that because if we implement this judgment, then we'll have to take away lands from these Muslim encroachers. They want to seek permission of the court. Now, this is pending since an year now. Nothing is happening. In fact, the case is listed tomorrow as well. And let us see what happens tomorrow. But then it is languishing in courts. The review petition, which normally should have been decided within 1 or 2 hearings, it is languishing and the judgment is not being implemented. Once the review is pending, I mean, the Supreme Court also says that the courts have to go slow on asking as far as about the implementation of the judgment. So that's the situation, the catch-22 situation. As far as 14th February 2018 order is concerned, this was a classified document. Nobody would dare to, from the bureaucracy, would dare to make it public. But then, yes, I made it public. We did a press conference. We directly attacked the sitting chief minister. He was annoyed, tried to harm us, but then we retaliated. Ultimately, it so happened that the 14th February 2018 order became redundant. As far as grant of minority rights to non-Muslims in J&K is concerned, which is being denied even as on date, I fought a case in Supreme Court in 2016 and got a judgment in 2018. In fact, between these 2 years, several joint committees were constituted or framed by the government, by the Supreme Court. And ultimately, we, in principle, won this battle. I mean, now I can say that even the Supreme Court has also said that both the state government, the J&K UT or the state government and the union government agreed to this thing that in J&K Muslims should not have minority status and minority benefits given to them because they constitute the majority community and the law is otherwise. But I got it settled from the Supreme Court on 12th March 2018. But unfortunately, the state of India, the Indian government, is still treating Muslims as minorities and giving away benefits of nearly 60 to 70 schemes, which includes high-powered scholarship schemes, 4 to 5 lakh per year scholarship for one beneficiary. You have 700, 500, 300 beneficiaries each scheme, multiply it with 660, so much economic empowerment, which is otherwise meant for Hindus and non-Muslims, Sikhs and Buddhists and Jains and Christians, being illegally being given away to Muslims, even as on date. So I think I have probably given a broader picture of the things which are happening in J&K, the role of the Indian state, even after abrogation of 370 and 35A. Maybe we can proceed ahead with some of your questions, if there are any.
I would like to ask the audience also to please type in their questions so that it can be put forward to Ankurji. And in the meanwhile, I would like to ask some of my questions. Now that you told about this minority benefits, like just a few weeks back, the BJP government at the center told the Supreme Court on a PIL by, I think, Ashwini Upadhyay on the benefits, minority benefits to be extended to Hindus in states and union territories where Hindus are in a minority. They tell the Supreme Court, yes, that should be done and it should be left to the states to decide. And they don't implement it in their own rule state, union territory, that is J&K. So how can this be treated as a contempt? And then of course you have your own 2018 judgment too. So can we move a contempt case on them for not implementing? Okay.
Oh, of course, that is a legal remedy which is available to us, and we can avail it at any point of time. But probably we have to understand this thing. They stated a fact in the Supreme Court because the legal position has to be presented before the highest court of the country, or for that matter, before any court, in exactly the way it is there in the statute books. So the Supreme Court, the Union of India, the government of India also basically validated our claim that yes, in states where Muslims are majority, they're not entitled for minority benefits or the minority status. But you see their double standards. They don't implement it on the ground. You talked about my 12th March 2018 judgment, a case which I fought in the Supreme Court myself for 2 years, ultimately won it. Apart from that, you have Prime Minister of India's office running a 15-point program for the minorities. So these are 15 different schemes meant for the minority community. And the implementation guidelines, they are easily available on Prime Minister of India's office website, PMO's website. If you read clause 7B of the implementation guidelines of these minority schemes on the Prime Minister office's website, you will find that under clause 7B, it is clearly written that those national minorities, which are in fact those national minorities which are in fact a majority in a state or a UT, will not have minority status and benefits of these schemes in that particular state or UT. It also goes on to say that these states include state of J&K, Punjab, then you have certain northeastern states and Lakshadweep, a union territory. It goes on to even name the states where Muslims will not get minority benefits. So basically 7B says that, like, for instance, Muslims are otherwise a minority, declared minority nationally at a national level. So the law says that since Muslims are majority, nearly 68-69% in J&K, so therefore J&K Muslims will not have a minority status and they will not get minority benefits. The other minorities, the non-Muslims, will get minority benefit. The Sikhs, the Buddhists, the Jains, and Hindus also, if at all they are declared officially minorities. Now, violating its own implementation guidelines, the Prime Minister's office is giving away all minority benefits and status to Muslims in J&K. Now, what do you say? I mean, they have their own implementation guidelines which they are not following, and they're giving away thousands and thousands of crores of rupees to illegal beneficiaries. Now, if you under any government scheme intentionally give away the benefit of that scheme to an illegal beneficiary, you'll be booked under Prevention of Corruption Act. Suppose under the Indira Awas Yojana, which is a housing program for the poor, if you provide the money to a well-off family which is not entitled under the scheme, you will be booked under the Prevention of Corruption Act. An FIR will be registered against you and you'll be arrested. But then you have Ministry of Social Welfare, the Prime Minister's office, which are blatantly, despite Supreme Court judgments, despite the law being very, very clear, despite having their own implementation guidelines like that, are violating these things and giving away what is meant for Hindus to Muslims. So I think apart from these legal remedies like contempt and other remedies or writ petition maybe, awareness about these facts among the common public is something which is of prime importance.
Okay. And Ankur ji, I want to ask you even one more question, rather two questions one by one. Shah Faisal is now being reinstated. I mean, he was made a topper. That itself is a big scam, if you ask me. him being made a topper of IAS exams, civil services, that itself would be a big scam in itself. But other than that, after that, he had tweeted, he called India a rapistan, Lynchistan, after 370 was neutered by the center. And he went on a rant against Indian state, right? And then he gave his resignation to. He was trying to flee to Turkey. We have a very big jihadi there sitting as a president of Turkey. We know that who sort of encourages all kinds of separate the secessionists and all those people from Kashmir. So he was trying to flee to Turkey. He was brought by the authorities back to Kashmir, and even he was put on a house arrest, right? Then he started his own political party. He even joined this Gupta, Gupkar, whatever. Clients, yeah. Literally, you can call it an assembly of jihadis. I would like to say that, assembly of jihadis who want Kashmir and Jammu to remain a Muslim state. So he joined them too. And now you have him singing for some few months, praising some of the schemes of Prime Minister Modi. So he's being declared as some great patriot and he's being reinstated. How can Indian state reinstate jihadis? And if he had given any other person in his place would have been sacked by now. So what your comments on that, please?
I think this fact validates our understanding of the situation that even after 2014, the state of India is following the policy, the 70 years old policy, the Nehruvian paradigm of J&K, under which power in J&K will be handed over to half separatists, jihadists, and there will be a premium on separatism. They'll be empowered, nationalists will be disempowered. So I think this one instance, and you have given great details of the episode, whatever this Shah Faisal fiasco of the government of India. I think I can only say that this establishes that the government of India still believes that in J&K, there has to be a premium on being a separatist or a half separatist. This is a clear cut. Otherwise, the analysis is baffling. Somebody who is openly against the Indian civilization, he questioned the civilizational values of the nation also, who is against the idea of India, who is a separatist by conviction, who is apparently anti-India, who was apparently working with the enemies of the country, who was allying with Islamic separatists or dictators who really want to unleash what is called as Ghazwa-e-Hind against the Sanatan Indic civilization. Otherwise, except for this fact that Muslim appeasement and Nehruvian policy on J&K, under which it is believed that the affairs of J&K have to be run by handing over power to Muslims, especially the Kashmiri Muslims in J&K, is ruling the roost. The understanding behind this is probably by accommodating separatists and Islamic secessionists and jihadists and half separatists, and making them the face of democracy and our democratic institutions. Somehow we'll be able to prove before the world that look how great Indian democracy and Indian secularism is, that we are even accommodating. You have a Muslim majority state where the face of democracy is a Muslim, and Muslims are making democracy in India successful, not telling to the entire world that the state of India itself has become a subversive tool in doing all this, and they are trying to show it to the world by compromising on the very national security of the country. So I think this episode, this conduct of state of India, beyond any reasonable doubt, is clearly establishes that it is the age-old Nehruvian policy paradigm on J&K which is being followed by even the current dispensation, and they have no conviction or commitment to take the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A to its logical conclusion. The direction is exactly opposite. They're empowering those people who demanded its rollback, who demanded Article 370, 35A. Now, for political reasons, 370 and 35A cannot come back, but then the ecosystem probably can be created, which ultimately was flourished under this umbrella of subversive umbrella of 370 and 35A. So I think that is being done. This is one instance. I can tell you 10 more instances, same kind of things.
Absolutely, Ankurji. There's one more thing, like, for example, now the BJP was quite in the forefront for praising Kashmir Files, like the movie that was made on the Hindu genocide. So sort of displaying to the world what happened in 1990. But they haven't really done anything about it to get justice to these people, the victims. So we need to address that problem. For example, now if you take Yasin Malik's case, Yasin Malik is now booked for terror funding. And it's sort of touted that he is sort of confessed and they have achieved a great thing. He's going to be out in few years' time, hardly, because he's confessed to. He's not being prosecuted. His trial for murder, rape, murder of 4 FO's officers, and then rape, loot that was unleashed in 1990 is not being prosecuted for that, which would actually lead him to the gallows. So can you please give your comments on that particular episode?
No, absolutely. I mean, this is again whitewashing the Hindu genocide in J&K. If you have seen Kashmir Files, the most important thing that this movie talks about is about the genocide of Hindus. So they are cherishing the movie as if they have officially declared whatever happened to Hindus in J&K in 1990s and thereafter was genocide. That has not been done. Punishing one Yasin Malik or some other individual is not going to will not suffice. The first step that the government of India needs to take in this direction, if at all they mean business in the matter, is to officially declare Hindu genocide and set up tribunals who would be trying the perpetrators of this Hindu genocide, which would also include mainstream political leaders like the Mufti family, the Abdullah family, and thousands of local residents. So I think the movie also talks about genocide, but it is ironical to see that the state of India is still in denial of this fact. Until and unless this Hindu genocide is officially declared and the law put in place, I don't think that the victims of genocide, justice will be done to them in any other manner. I mean, only after this official declaration, things will fall in place. Until and unless, that's the first step. Only the second step comes into picture. I mean, you want to showcase to the world that yes, we have taken action against Yasin Malik. That's nothing. That's nothing. Literally nothing.
Absolutely. And Ankurji, when Bangladesh can do it, like for example, in Bangladesh, they had a 1971 a war crime tribunal, like and they hanged many people who were guilty of the genocide that was committed then. So why can't India do it? There is one thing that we have.
It is because Indian state itself is the biggest instrument of denial of Hindu genocide. You talk about 1947, you talk about 1990s of Kashmir, you talk about what is happening to Hindus in Bengal, in Kerala, in parts of Tamil Nadu, in other areas of UP, etc. They will not officially, acknowledge that whatever is happening or happened to Hindus in certain areas is Hindu genocide, despite the same being a fact. So therefore, it's the subversive state apparatus, and therefore we say that the state as a political entity is working against the nation. It is working against the interests of Sanatan Indic civilization. It is a subversive tool which has been taken over and hijacked from within. Until and unless we get rid of this takeover of the Indian state, and it is done by planting individuals and policies over a long period of time. It's It's a gone case now in this case. So until and unless we realize that the state is against the nation and the Indian state is working against the Indian nation, we'll be meeting up with so many situations, analyzing which would be a very baffling exercise. I mean, the analysis would be very baffling. So imagine, how can Indian state continue to remain in denial of Hindu genocide? How can it? You cannot explain it rationally. It is beyond reason. But once the moment you come to realize that the state has been taken over, it's not our state, it has to be corrected, it has to be fixed, things will not fall in place or fall in line. So therefore, Muslim appeasement, working against civilizational and Hindu interests is one of the hallmarks of this Indian state. And it is only because of the character of the Indian state that it is hostile towards the nation of India, towards the Hindus, towards the Sanatan Indic civilization, that it is not officially declaring Hindu genocide as genocide, not setting up tribunals, not taking up strong action against the perpetrators of Hindu genocide. So I think that's my understanding of the situation.
And now we have this the Indian government accepting sort of $2.5 billion of investment from Gulf. How do you look at it?
That was a long pending demand of the Hurriyat conference, the separatist lobby. The government of India has fulfilled it for the Hurriyat conference. Connecting Kashmir's economy to Saudi Arabia and Gulf countries, the UAE, etc., is something which is going to be fatal for the national security of the country in the long run. The government of India, the state of India, has delivered for the separatist lobby, the jihadist lobby in J&K. That's all I can say.
Absolutely, you're very right. I too agree with it, very right. And in the delimitation exercise that they did, they've done something that which has never happened before. They've joined South Kashmir with Jammu's Rajouri and Panch. So please do.
That's another thing, I mean, which the state of India has delivered for the jihadists and the separatist lobby in J&K. This South Kashmir, everybody knows, is the hotbed of terrorism and separatism. This South Kashmir area would never share a physical boundary with Pakistan. So now with this new delimitation exercise, this South Kashmir has been connected with areas of Jammu province. I mean, Muslim majority, Muslim exclusive districts of Kashmir, the separatist area, has now been clubbed with the Muslim exclusive districts of Jammu province, and a parliamentary constituency has been recast. Now, this Rajouri and Poonch area share physical boundary with Pakistan. So now you have a legislative separatist corridor starting from South Kashmir, running through Muslim majority districts with certain separatist tendencies of Rajouri, Poonch, connecting directly with Pakistan. So you have now a radical separatist political legislative corridor built by the state of India, aiding separatist activities in J&K. So the state of India is once again, through this measure, has delivered for Pakistan, it has delivered for ISI, it has delivered for the separatist lobby. Imagine, out of the total 18 assembly seats, 13 assembly seats in this constituency, I mean, this parliamentary constituency includes in itself around 18 seats, 18 MLA seats. So out of 18, 13 are situated in Kashmir, are located in South Kashmir. So who would become an MP in this area? And a person from South Kashmir catering to demands of the South Kashmiris, the separatist hotbed, who would he be? And those people who have been, I mean, sent packing in the hands of these separatists, how would they behave? Who would they follow? So I think it's an extension of Greater Muslim Kashmir within Jammu province, a plan which was envisaged by Sheikh Abdullah, the first separatist leader, connecting Muslim majority districts of Kashmir with Muslim majority districts of Jammu. Something which should not have been done. It has now been done. It has been given legislative sanction. It has now, I mean, been given a political identity. I think that's one of the most subversive latest acts of the state of India. And therefore, I say that it is working against the nation of India. Doing this would be an anti-national thing. State is anti-national. It has done this anti-national activity in J&K and given it a legal statutory sanction also.
Absolutely, you're very right. And then we have with us Adityan Ji. Is he there? Can he? Would he like to ask the question, or can I ask the question for him? Is Adityan Ji, are you there? You can please come and ask your question. Right? Are you there? I think he's not there, so I would like to. Okay, I'll ask the question. He's put it in the chat box that how many people have got domicile in J&K after modification of 370 and abrogation of Article 35A.
No, the official figures are not out, but I can tell you that very small percentage of population has been able to get, the outside population has been able to get domicile certificates. Domicile, we should also realize that it is introducing Article 35A from backdoor, because the condition for being a domicile of J&K, the prime condition is that you should be a resident of J&K for continuous long 15 years. Any foreign national claiming Indian citizenship through naturalization process is required under law to live in India continuously for a period of 11 years only. But an Indian citizen wanting a domicile certificate in J&K has to live 4 years more than what a foreign national is required under law to live in India for getting a citizenship. So 15 years continuously, if you're living here in J&K, you are entitled for a domicile certificate. So Indian citizens are still debarred. There's no incentive for Indian citizens to get a domicile certificate in J&K. As far as employment is concerned in J&K, they came out after abrogation of 35A, again with the same law, which ultimately is a kind of law which was legislated using 35A, saying that only these domicile the domiciles of J&K can apply for government jobs, be it gazetted jobs or be it non-gazetted jobs in J&K. So 35A has been literally brought back. So discussing data about domicile is nothing. I mean, how many people got? Everybody who was a permanent resident of the state got the domicile certificate. Yes, one positive thing happened. The West Pakistani refugees running into nearly a lakh, probably not more than that, because that is a different issue. I mean, there's certain things, technicalities involved. Not more than nearing lakh. I cannot tell you the exact number. That might be lesser. They got domicile certificates. They earlier didn't have the domicile certificate or the permanent. They were living here since 1947, but since they were Hindus, they were denied these permanent residents. They came in 1947 at the time of partition from Punjab, state of the undivided India. So since they were not the residents of this princely state of J&K, they were not given these permanent resident certificates. So they would fight for it. They were living here, but they didn't have any rights of applying for government jobs or buying property in J&K. They are the biggest immediate beneficiaries. Indian citizens are still debarred from getting employment or even for practical reasons now lands also in J&K. Situation is the same.
There is Mr. Shah ji. He has a question. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question, please, Mr. Shah? I hope it is Mr. Hello. Mr. Shah, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I will ask the question. The person perhaps cannot listen. He is put up a question that what is the role of Muslim Rashtriya Manch in these anti-national laws, making of these anti-national laws?
I have not seen.
Okay, Muslim Rashtriya Manch is actually part of the RSS. It was made by Indiresh Kumar of RSS in 2000. So I don't know how far it has an effect in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, but it does have an effect in other parts of India. We've seen lots of statements by Indiresh Kumar himself saying that the Nizam of Hyderabad was a very benign person, he made these statements lately. So all these funny things happen, and there was a guy called a part of the Muslim Rashtriya Manch. He was lately caught by Uttar Pradesh police, and he was running a conversion racket. Conversion racket, literally a jihadi racket. Sort of, so it is a highly controversial, you can say, organization. I mean, the RSS, if it is really calling itself Rashtriya Manch, whatever, if it is really a Swayam Seva, it should be completely doing away with this funny organization immediately. That is one thing. So I have other questions too. For example, like they have also, I think the BJP government also took over new temples in Jammu area. So I think you had petitioned against it, and then you were trying to free the Vaishno Devi temple too, and to give it to the sampradayas which actually had the temple. So can you please talk about that too?
Yes, J&K is a Hindu minority state, and despite Hindus being minority in the state of J&K, their religious institutions have been taken over by the state. And alike the entire nation, the exercise is selective. You would not find state taking over the religious institutions of any other community. You talk about gurudwaras, the churches, the mosques. They are not state controlled. Exclusively only Hindu temples have been taken over by the state. The current dispensation, despite having an official position that yes, Hindu temples should remain with Hindus, has chosen not to free Hindu temples from the yoke of the state. You rightly said, through Baridars, and I am the advocate in the case, we filed a writ petition in J&K High Court challenging the constitutional validity of the Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine Board Act. Mata Vaishno Devi Ji shrine was taken over by the state in J&K in the year 1986. The law of the land is very clear. After correcting ills, you have to hand it back to the community. Since 1986, it continues to remain under the control of the government. Only 6 months back, the UT government filed its reply in our case, in which it categorically said that temples should remain under the control of the state. And we're talking about the BJP government, both at the center as well as in the UT. So I think that's the factual position that we have. You have Sukrala Devi temple also being taken over. You have Amarnath shrine also being under the control of the state. Now, recently, you have Mata Machel in Kishtwar district. That has also gone virtually under the control of the state. And the position of the state as far as handing over temples to Hindus back is concerned is this, that we will not hand it over back to the Hindus, and we will be taking over all Hindu temples in J&K, despite Hindus being minority in J&K.
And yeah, that's, I would like to ask Mr. Anil Sharma ji to please unmute himself and ask this question, please.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello, Ankur ji. अंकुर जी, मेरा आपसे प्रश्न है, आपकी हर एक बात सच है एंड इट्स ट्रूली 100% परफेक्ट है जो भी आपने कहा है. मेरा थोड़ा सा कंसर्न ये है कि आपकी जितनी भी बातें हैं, हम सब का जितना भी कंसर्न है, उसकी सोल्यूशन पॉलिटिकल लेवल पे है, चाहे वो हमारे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के लेवल पे होगी या सेंटर के. तो एकजुट जम्मू कब तक, मतलब आपने ये जितने भी हमारे कंसर्न है इनको फुलफिल कर सकता है? इनफैक्ट मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये और भी अच्छा क्या हो सकता था अगर एकजुट जम्मू डायरेक्ट पॉलिटिक्स के बजाय जो प्रेशर पॉलिटिक्स है सेंटर की गवर्नमेंट में, अभी बीजेपी की जो गवर्नमेंट है, अगर हम उस पे प्रेशर पॉलिटिक्स या जितने भी बीजेपी के हम कह सकते हैं कि नॉन पॉलिटिकल विंग्स हैं, उनके जरिए प्रेशर बना के क्या हम अपने ये कंसर्न पूरे जल्दी नहीं कर सकते थे? केवल एकजुट डायरेक्ट पॉलिटिक्स के लेवल पे इसमें ऐसा लगता है कि थोड़ा से चांसेस हमें लगता है कम है कि हमारी सारी जो कंसर्न्स हैं ये फुलफिल हो पाए। मेरा क्वेश्चन शायद आप समझ पा रहे होंगे, ये मैं
जी जी
कहना चाह रहा हूँ।
जी,
जी,
मैं समझ रहा हूँ।
मेरा
देखिए,
कंसर्न यही है कि
आपका
क्योंकि हमारी
आपका
इसमें
कंसर्न बहुत जायज है। और अगर आप रैशनली सिचुएशन को देखें तो प्रोबेबली कोई भी एक प्रूडेंट इंसान इसी तरीके से सोचेगा कि प्रोबेबली प्रेशर पॉलिटिक्स के जरिए लोगों को समझा के या उनके साथ हाथ में हाथ मिला के चीजों को ठीक किया जा सकता है। लेकिन एक अनफॉर्चुनेट सिचुएशन ये है कि सबवर्जन का लेवल पूरे हिंदुस्तान में और खासकर जम्मू कश्मीर में, और इंक्लूडिंग जिन पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज का आपने नाम लिया, वो ये है कि ये सबसे बड़े इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स हो गए हैं हम ही लोगों के खिलाफ काम करने वाले। आपने शुरू में ही कहा कि सोल्यूशन पॉलिटिकल रूट के थ्रू आएगा। ऑब्वियसली अगर इंडियन स्टेट के चरित्र को बदलना है आपको, तो आपको कुछ रेडिकल चीजें करनी पड़ेंगी जो मेरे हिसाब से तभी हो सकती हैं व्हेन यू आर योरसेल्फ अ पार्ट ऑफ द स्टेट अपरेटस। प्रेशर टैक्टिक्स के जरिए देखिए पिछले कई वर्षों से तो हम कर ही रहे हैं। ये एकजुट जम्मू पॉलिटिकल पार्टी तो अभी एक वर्ष पहले ही 2020 में हमने डिक्लेयर किया था। उससे पहले 2014 ऑनवर्ड से ही चीजें चल रही हैं, लेकिन ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम शुरू में मैं भी यही समझता था कि प्रोबेबली इस तरीके से ठीक होगा, लेकिन एक समय आ गया जब हमने रियलाइज किया कि अनटिल एंड अनलेस चीजें हम अपने हाथ में लेते हैं, तो जिस लेवल की सबवर्जन हो चुकी है सिस्टम में, उसको ठीक नहीं किया जा सकता। किसी के कंधे पे बंदूक रख के चीजों को हम ठीक नहीं कर पाएंगे इन द गिवन सर्कमस्टांसेस। हालांकि जो आपने तरीका सजेस्ट करवाया, मैं सिरे से खारिज नहीं कर रहा हूं कि वो नहीं है, नॉर्मल सिचुएशंस में वही है, लेकिन एक एबनॉर्मल सिचुएशन है जहां पे स्टेट ही राष्ट्र के खिलाफ है। सो जब तक आप इस बात की अनुभूति नहीं कर लेते, तो मुझे लगता है कि सोल्यूशन भी नहीं मिलेगा। और अगर मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि यही पॉलिटिकल रूट चुनना ही करेक्ट सोल्यूशन है, तो मुझे लगता है कि मुझे फिर तत्काल प्रभाव से उस रास्ते पर चलना शुरू कर देना चाहिए। और यही हमने तय किया आफ्टर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम हैविंग लिटरेरी एक्सपीरियंस तो छोड़ी, लेकिन एक्सपीरियंशियल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द थिंग्स इन जेएंडके। हमने तो बहुत सारी इस डिस्कशन में बातें की कि बहुत सारी चीजों को एनालाइज अगर आप करेंगे तो रैशनल माइंड तो बिल्कुल खत्म हो जाएगा। मतलब लॉजिक अप्लाई करके चीजों को समझने की कोशिश करेंगे तो आप पागल हो जाएंगे। ये बियॉन्ड लॉजिक जाके चीजों को आपको समझने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि सबवर्शन का लेवल इतना गहरा है। तो मेरे ओपिनियन में पॉलिटिकल रूट के जरिए ही इससे हम निजात पा सकते हैं, क्योंकि जो ऑलरेडी पॉलिटिकल स्फीयर में पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज या लोग हैं वो इस सबवर्जन से ग्रस्त हैं। हमें एक स्टेज पे आके ये समझ आया कि ये हमारी गलत फहमी है कि हम इन्हें समझा के कुछ कर सकते हैं। इनके खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़के, और एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डेमोक्रेसी में पॉलिटिकल रूट के थ्रू ही सबसे इफेक्टिव लड़ाई लड़ी जा सकती है। ये हमारा जेन्युइन बिलीफ है। ठीक है, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि 100% हम ही सही हैं, हम गलत हो सकते हैं, लेकिन जो भी हम कर रहे हैं वो चीजों से सीख के, सिचुएशन से सीख के ही कर रहे हैं। मतलब विदाउट एप्लीकेशन ऑफ माइंड कोई भी डिसीजन नहीं है। और मुझे लगता है कि चीजें ठीक हो रही हैं, और आपने देखा कि लोगों का साथ भी हमें मिल रहा है। आज भी कोई 125-150 लोग यंग पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविस्ट, यूथ एक्टिविस्ट ने हमें ज्वाइन किया। लास्ट वीक भी कोई 70-80 की यूथ एक्टिविस्ट जो जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, ऑफिस बेयरर्स हैं अलग अलग जगह पे, उन्होंने ज्वाइन किया था। अगले हफ्ते भी वी हैव प्रोग्राम्स लाइंड अप। मुझे लगता है कि ये जो एक पॉलिटिकल अल्टरनेटिव जिसकी जरूरत जम्मू को भी है और अल्टीमेटली देश को भी है, उसके निर्माण के लिए हमें अभी से ही कार्यरत रहना, और वही धर्म का निर्वहन हम कर रहे हैं। कैसे चीजें शेप लेंगी, क्या हमारी इस तरीके की पॉलिटिक्स से भी एग्जिस्टिंग पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज पे कोई असर पड़ेगा नहीं पड़ेगा, उसके बारे में मैं कुछ कह नहीं सकता। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि आज कई सारे इश्यूज पे एकजुट जम्मू पार्टी जम्मू में एजेंडा सेटअप करती है और उस पर चर्चा होती है। आपने देखा कि किस तरीके से, चाहे मंदिरों पे हमले का इश्यू हो जो भी जम्मू में रिसेंट हुआ, टारगेटेड किलिंग्स हो जो हुआ, लाउड स्पीकर का इशू जो हुआ, इसको एकजुट जम्मू पार्टी और पार्टी एक्टिविस्ट्स ने ही उठाया सिर्फ केवल। मुझे लगता है कि इस पृष्ठभूमि में देखा जाए तो प्रोबेबली आई थिंक दैट्स द फास्टेस्ट वे, दैट्स द वे, फास्टेस्ट भी क्या, लेकिन दैट्स द वे ऑफ हैंडलिंग सबवर्जन जो चल रही है।
अंकुर जी नमस्कार।
जी नमस्कार।
मैं आपका छोटा भाई आशीष आनंद भट्ट, जैसे कि आप
जी
ने
जी
मुझे इनवाइट किया था आज। आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल। अगर मैंने आपके बीच में चौका हो तो आई एम सॉरी फॉर दैट, क्योंकि यहाँ पे लाइट जाने का है थोड़ा
नहीं, आप
इंटेंशन
सवाल
से
पूछ
मुझे
लीजिए, आप सवाल पूछ लीजिए, क्योंकि प्रोबेबली
हाँ हाँ
गायत्री
मैं
की 9 बजे का टाइम
Yeah,
सेटअप वुड बी एंडिंग इट, तो आप फटाफट
yeah.
अपना
हाँ हाँ
लाइन टू लाइन सवाल पूछ लीजिए।
क्या हम इस ग्रुप में सारे हिंदूज हैं या बाकी मुस्लिम वगैरह भी है कोई?
जी, आपको जो पूछना है आप पूछ लीजिए बिना झिझक के,
हाँ,
दैट्स ओके।
मैं थोड़ा फीडबैक देना चाहता हूँ जिस प्लेटफॉर्म पे हम बात कर रहे हैं, द प्लेटफॉर्म विच वी आर टॉकिंग, दिस इज अ वेरी बिग। गायत्री जी से मैं पहले भी बहुत बार मीटिंग में बात कर चुका हूँ, इफ गायत्री रिमेम्बर्स। My name is Ashish. I have joined 2 meetings with you. I hope you have recorded that meetings or you remember or not that. So anyways,
Okay. Ji.
namaskar to all. I would like to give some little bit feedback from my side, just like Ankurji invited me on this. The problem is that hum ek kashmakash mein hai. Why? Because BJP is hiding something. What is happening in the ground, what is happening in the chair, what is happening in the meetings, what is happening behind the chair, what is happening behind the Hindus itself also. मैं बहुत सारी चीजें बोलना चाहता था, लेकिन so it's a very sensitive matter, but I will share a
अगर
little
आपका
bit.
कुछ, because the program has to be wrapped up,
बस
गायत्री,
मैं थोड़ा
अगर
सा
आपका
2
कुछ
मिनट
क्वेश्चन, हाँ, अगर आपका कुछ
मैं
क्वेश्चन है तो प्रोबेबली यू कैन आस्क।
मैं 2 ही मिनट लेना चाहता हूँ कि एकजुट जम्मू तो चलो बहुत पहले बन जानी चाहिए थी। जब बम बम बोले का एपिसोड हुआ, उसमें हमारी विजय हुई, जीत हुई, चलो देर आए दुरुस्त आए, हम आधी जंग तो जीत चुके हैं। सो बीजेपी कुछ चीजें अंकुर जी छुपा रही है, तो मैं वो चीजें कैसे मैं बताऊं, तो मिलेंगे कभी तो बताएंगे। सो अब ये है कि बीजेपी कुछ चीजें छुपा रही है जो हिंदू की डेवलपमेंट्स के लिए है। ऐसा नहीं है कि मुस्लिम के अगेंस्ट कर रही है या करना चाहती है, लेकिन
I think we've lost him.
Yes, probably yes.
We've lost him. Okay.
Mhm.
I had a, you would like to speak whatever he was trying to ask. I don't know exactly what he was trying to ask. So,
He was probably talking about the role of the political party which is in control both in Delhi and JN, and jiski political ideology is Hindutva and staunch Hindu nationalism. So I think we've already discussed these things
yeah,
in detail, है ना?
yeah,
तो
yeah,
and
yeah.
तो the state,
Ankur ji, I would like to ask you, like for me, what broke the camel's straw? I mean, the last straw on the camel's back, as it is said. For me, that was seeing one Rahul Bhatt's blood-soaked Janevu there, right on the stretcher. That and the protesters being beaten up. Protesters who were asking for security, for secure postings, and this terrorist system, that ecosystem to be handled properly, and they've been given proper postings with security. Those people were beaten up black and blue. Not only that, their hands got fractured. Many of them sustained very grievous injuries. And then even after that, sustained manner in Badgaon area, where this Sheikhpura area, where the colony of this Kashmiri Hindus are there, it seems the gate was closed. They were not allowed to come out and protest. And I even heard, I don't know how much of it is true, I heard that the gates were electrified. So this sort of showed to me that the state is not interested in keeping Hindus safe. So that conveyed that message to me. Ankurji, your thoughts on that?
no, absolutely, I fully agree with you. I mean, such is the kind of insensitiveness of the state towards Hindus that whenever they rise up in arms against atrocities being unleashed against them, the state apparatus would try to crush them brutally. And that is something that you saw. I mean, something which concerns the survival and existence of that Hindu population in Kashmir. I mean, people are not being allowed to agitate about it. Such is the insensitive nature of the state of India as far as JNK is concerned. And yes, they were taken hostages. Yes, I mean, the barbed wires or जो electricity वहाँ छोड़ दी थी around the gates so that they could not come out. I mean, these are again attempts of whitewashing things which are happening to the Hindus in Kashmir as on date. They want to hide. They are in a denial mode as far as Hindu genocide is concerned. Anything which establishes that this Hindu genocide is continuous and unabated in the state of J&K, they would try to brush it under the carpet. And that attitude of the state you saw when these things unfolded in Kashmir after the killing of Rahul Bhatt.
Because if you contrast it in, say, like the Shaheen Bagh protests, they never did anything. They let the Muslim Islamists there sit in, during the anti-CAA. They were sitting in for 4 5 months, literally blocking way to Sarita Vihar and Kalindi Kunj, if you know Delhi well. Like we really couldn't go to, people couldn't go to Noida because that is a route that people take, So that was the problem we faced. They never did anything. And these Kashmiri Hindus, they don't pelt stones like the Kashmiri Muslims do or the rest of the people do. They are peaceful people who have never ever taken to violence, and the victims were beaten up. That was really bad.
So you will find so many instances of same kind of situations. But if you connect all these dots, you would find that Indian state puts a premium on anti-nationals, in J&K on pro-separatists, and there are costs which the nationalists have to bear. The same, the state of India is hostile to the nation of India. So that's again a fact that you stated. In fact, after Shaheen Bagh, the state of India delivered for the protesters. It, as on date, declined to legislate rules which would ultimately lead to grant of citizenship to the persecuted minorities of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, which means the Hindus and Sikhs of these areas. So Hindus are not getting citizenship. The persecuted Hindus are not getting citizenship in India as on date just because the Muslims do not want them to have it. And Shaheen Bagh ultimately was a success. So there is a premium which the state of India puts on anti-national activities, anti-nationalists, the separatists, and there is a cost which the nationalists have to bear. And here comes our analysis, the character of the state of India, that it is hostile to the nation of India. I mean, Hindus constitute what is called as the nation of India. It's a Hindu nation.
Absolutely. In
So
fact, you have encapsulated it very well, that the state of India is against the nation of India. The ruling state is against the nation of India. You can say that. And it's particular. Can you please, who is speaking? Because it's wrong to kind of butt in like that. So could you please, who is it?
We lost him. We just lost him.
Okay. Can you please continue?
Yes. So it's the state of India which we inherited after 1947 is not the state which we wanted, or the state which will take care of this nation. So that's a reality which everybody has to acknowledge. And only when we acknowledge that this state apparatus is not ours, it is planted, it is hijacked, it has been taken over, it is hostile to the interests of the Sanatan Indic civilization, only I think thereafter we'll be able to correct things. Governments come and go, but the state apparatus, that's remained the same. Government is only a part. State is an abstraction. You see the political entity. Government is only a part of it. So we are not blaming the governments only. We are blaming the entire state apparatus. I think its character needs to be changed. But for us to do that, we'll have to first realize that state is anti-nation. Which is something which is very difficult to understand. But if we discuss things that we discussed in today's session, probably slowly and steadily we'll come to know, we'll be able to draw conclusions that yes, the Indian state is not working in the interest of the Indian nation.
Absolutely.
Now, for instance, the entire Indian nation wants to have a very strong cow slaughter law, but the Indian state would not legislate it. We want to have UCC, but the Indian state would not legislate it. The entire nation feels that India is the worst victim of terrorism. So even the UN says, the members says that you have to, for democratic countries, they have to augment their legal systems to a level where they should be able to handle terrorist acts and terrorism. So we have to have very, very strong laws against terrorism. But there, Indian state intervenes and says that despite India being one of the topmost victims of terrorism, there is a general consensus within the state actors that we should not have a very, very strong law against terrorism. Tada Pota ke against jo movement thi was this only. These are very strong laws, and ultimately they were repealed. So therefore, I mean, this is again Indian state's characteristic of working against the national interest, and that is something which makes it anti-national in character.
That reminds me, now there is a move to sort of nullify sedition laws, and they want to even remove UAPA also. So
Yeah.
that's a very dangerous thing. So being a lawyer, I would like to have your views
No,
on it.
that is what I'm saying. The state is anti-national and is working against the Indian nation. I mean, probably it has become an instrument now of ultimately having India balkanized. It is empowering those forces which are hell-bent to balkanize the country. Why do you want to repeal 124A of IPC, the sedition law? Because you do not want it to be used against those who are engaged in seditious activities against the nation. So once you do not have it in place, so you'll give away, I mean, quite a lot of enthusiasm to people who are, So, I mean, so that is how they attack, that is how they subvert the system, that is how they hijack the system, and that is how they turn the state against the nation. This is again one of the instances of the state working against the national interests.
Absolutely, you're very right. And for example, if people had problems that the sedition is being misused, there could have been provisions like having the FIR lodged only with the permission of the SP or superintendent of police or something of that kind. Those kind of mechanisms should have been put in place. That's
there are safeguards. There are safeguards. If you,
safeguards.
Yeah, safeguards. 1962 Supreme Court judgment, lots and lots of safeguards. So many safeguards. In 295, you have to take the district magistrate has to be a complainant. Similar, 124. So I mean, there are safeguards. Supreme Court has brought in so many safeguards as far as 120. And as far as this argument that 124 is being misused, there is no section, there is no provision of law which has not been misused.
Absolutely.
So you can't have the entire statute book thrown to the winds.
Ankurji, can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
I think we lost him.
We lost him again. I know they have very bad signal problems. So I think, Ankurji, I would like you to wrap up saying that how can this situation be sort of salvaged when we have the state sort of surrendering to jihad? How do we salvage the situation from here?
No, by realizing in the first instance that this state is not ours, it is not working in national interest. There are interests, very vital interests that this Sanatan Indic civilization has. I think we should start working in that direction. We should create awareness about the character of the state. We should try to explain as to how this state apparatus has been hijacked and is working against us. So until and unless we have that, diagnosis of the problem, we'll not be able to salvage the situation. So I think there's so many things which we can do, but I'm just giving a helicopter broader view as to how do we start with. So then all symptoms of this subverted situation, where the state is a taken over entity, I think we'll be able to respond to those situations properly, but not without this realization.
Absolutely, Ankurji. I would like to wrap this session because we had a very wonderful session. Thank you so much for coming here. And you're very right. The state has been taken over by the enemy, as I would like to put it. Till we are all aware of this fact, we cannot tackle the problem. We have to understand that the state is not ready to have the political will and the administrative will to tackle jihad. So that being the problem, Hindus need to know this, become aware, so that they look for solutions after becoming aware of this problem. It's important that we realize this truth. So with this, I would like to wrap the session. And thank you, Ankurji, so much. And it has been a great pleasure to have you. And I would like to keep inviting you every now and then as situation unfolds.
No, thank you so
Ankurji.
much for calling me. It's always been a pleasure talking to you through your platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar.